Well, what shall we talk about today? Maybe painting an architectural detail? Or how about the challenges of painting on hot press paper? Or how about these new to me, Ganzai graphite colors? Or making it a mixed media piece with Derwent drawing pencils? How about all of the above? Right? Hello minders, welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor. Well, I'm getting ready to paint this architectural detail. It's something I've wanted to paint for a long time. This is one of the railings at Biltmore Estate, something I love, and we're going to paint this on a piece of harsh hot press from a pad. Now, I'm kind of regretting doing that, but we'll talk about that later, and we'll also talk about the challenges of painting on hot press paper, because there are a few. But first, I'm going to trace this. I hope you're not averse to tracing. If you're needing to prove to yourself that you can sight draw, get proportions correct, accurately sight draw, do that. Do that practice. You do that practice specifically. You don't have to do that on a piece that you really want to paint. Build your confidence and make sure you know how to do it, and you won't feel so bad about tracing. Now, I'm not saying all of you feel bad about tracing, but there is a crowd out there feels like you should never trace, and it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's an amateurish idea, and it's a tool. Tracing is a tool that pros use all the time. That's all I'll say about that. So I've got this traced, and I'm just going to go in and hand draw and strengthen some of the lines next to where the dark contrasts will be. Where a lot of the dark values will be painted in, I just want to give a little extra line and maybe sharpen it in places. One of the things you can do is trace only what you need to get the basic proportions and then draw in the rest. I do that quite a lot. Actually, I do draw from sight quite a lot too, just for the practice. But a subject like this, no, it takes forever. Well, I think we're ready to go with the painting. Kind of a line and wash, but probably going to add some reinforcing line after I've done the wash. And I want the wash to be a little bit loose and expressive, whereas, these guide pencil marks here are fairly tight. Because it's such a gray subject, I decided to use graphite colors. I was going to use graphite, but I recently got these Ganzai graphite colors. I swatched them out, and I really, really like them. These are the graphite swatches, which is a 12 color set. This is that set that I just showed you, the Ganzai graphite colors. I like both. It's only 6 colors here, but what I really, really loved about these was how easily they re-wet into a very deep, inky color mixture. You really have to kind of work at loosening these up and getting color. Not a big deal, but since these are new and I've never tried them, we're going to do it on this painting. And I think the grays in the image is the perfect subject to do that with. The only thing I didn't like about these is the individual loose pans. No real place to put them. I don't really even have a mixing area, so I'm going to bring out this little ceramic palette. And I think what I'm going to do is start with some fairly loose light values and maybe light middle values. And then we'll go in and negative paint in some of the deeper shadows. And those will be a little tighter. All right, let's get going. All right, so let's start in with the painting. Wanted this background to be kind of loose. Well, I'll say background. I wanted the background washes. It's not really a background. The base washes. Maybe that's a better way to say it. To be fairly loose, and then when I go in and fill in the deeper values on the details, we'll sharpen it up. We'll make those fairly tight. And then I'm going to come on top of everything with colored pencil. These paints are really great. I love it. I was a little bit looser on this even than I wanted to be, but some of that has to do with the challenges of painting on hot press paper. Hot press paper is notorious for leaving hard edges right from the get-go. It's hard to paint softly on hot press paper. That's, I think, one of the challenges. In this case, it was okay. It kind of played into the look that I was going for, but I was reminded of it. And I wish I'd done it on a block or stretched the paper, because this thing warped. You'll see towards the end, I ended up taping down. I didn't tape the whole thing down. I taped down a corner and it kept popping up. All right, let's do a quick little sidebar on the hot press paper. This is what I'm using today. It's a 140-pound pad. It's a tear-off pad. Actually, I rarely use hot press in a tear-off pad, so this is like a first in a long time. Well, the first thing I noticed as I was painting is that compared to, and these are just sections of sheets that they've cut up and pasted into a pad, but compared to the cold press, Arch cold press, it feels a little flimsier and it seemed to warp a little easier. It was frustrating because I painted with a lot wetter washes up in that corner, and that corner kept lifting off the drawing board. What I should have done is stretched it. What I usually like to do is paint with blocks for hot press. This is an older block. It used to be orange. Now a hot press is designated by pink. And I don't have as much problem. You still will get some buckling on a block, but I don't have as much problem on a block. You can also, of course, get loose sheets. You can also get 300-pound, which would kind of solve the problem. That's what I should have done, maybe, is cut a piece of 300-pound paper and use that. Anyway, just a couple other things about hot press that I want you to know. Advantages, or perhaps disadvantages, depending on what you're doing. It dries much quicker. And so to paint smooth, like wet and wet washes, you've got to wet everything and keep it wet. If you paint wet on dry, the edges set in almost immediately. So that may be a disadvantage. If it's a look you're going for, then it's maybe not a problem. But you'll see edges set in almost instantly, and then you can't like move them. So to get smooth washes on hot press, you need to kind of pre-wet areas. Other characteristics is that color and paint tends to sit on the surface a little more. You get a little bit brighter intensity on hot press, just a little bit. And of course, for dry media like ink or pencil or watercolor pencil, any of that, it's excellent because you don't pick up all that texture. So it's a favorite, among artists who like to use dry media. It's also a favorite among artists who like to blend and color smaller shapes where you can control the wetness of the area. So in other words, a lot of wet on dry painting with smaller shapes. Those are just a few of my observations. I'm sure others have different pros and cons. All right, back to the painting thing. Anyway, we're done with those basic washes that are loose, and now it's just a matter of going in and putting in the details. All of those background washes, I tried to keep a light to middle value. In a lot of places, I could have left them even lighter than I did. But most of the details that I need to put in now are dark. Now, the colors I'm using from that set are the graphite yellow, the graphite violet, the graphite brown, and the graphite blue. Towards the end, I ended up using mostly the graphite blue and the graphite brown. I was essentially trying to keep a warm, cool relationship going here. Grays, but that's what I saw, in the original piece, the original photo, with some elements of that cement or whatever it is were very warm and some were cool. So keeping that feel. And I love these paints. They really did the job for this. There were a lot of gradations in this, so it was great practice for that. And by the way, if you're a patron, I will have this photo as reference for you if you want to try this yourself. So patrons, eventually look for that to be posted. But you had a lot of flat washes. You had a lot of graded washes in the little details. Once you get into a groove and get going with that, it's really pretty fun. So if you want to try this, make sure you kind of hone your blending skills, because you're going to need them. Your smooth gradation blending skills, as it were. From here, it's just a matter of close observation of the photo, where the lights and darks are, and deepening the contrast, getting the contrast adjusted to where I like it. And I thought it was working pretty well. I liked the contrast of the tighter details with that looser underwash. And I wanted this railing to fade out to just a drawing. I like that effect. So it looks almost like an architect's rendering. Now we're going to go back and sharpen up all the edges and details with this pencil. This is a Derwent drawing pencil. This one is ink blue. So it's dark, but it's not jet black. Now I am not, and this is something I stress for you, I'm not outlining everything. And I suggest, you can do whatever look you want, but I suggest you don't do that. I mainly focused on those edges that bordered darker areas or that provided some contrast. And I kept the darkest marks to corners and edges, again, where there was contrast. I didn't mind the colored pencil marks being seen and recognized for what they were, but I also didn't want there to be sort of an overpowering look of line. I wanted the line to blend very well with the watercolor. So that was my thought process here. This kind of process, or this kind of look, works really well, I think, with architecture, because it just adds that extra crispness without overdoing it. Like you can see in areas like this right here on this curve where I only did part of the curve and then I left the rest off. So I'm definitely not outlining and going around every single edge. Now, since it's a multimedia or a mixed media piece, I thought I would hit the highlights with a warm white. So I just basically mixed up a warm white gouache. Just gouache with a little bit of, I think it was brown, burnt umber, burnt sienna, something like that. Mostly white though, as you can tell. And then we hit all those top edges with a highlight. Wasn't planning originally to do this, but I did not leave those highlights as bright as I wanted them. And this sort of mixed media look, especially once you've used colored pencil, put a little gouache in there for highlights, I think works well for architectural objects. I was not super happy with that background around the top right, but I needed something there just to emphasize that was the edge. That was the edge of that railing. You'll see in the final shot that I take of the finished piece that I sort of monkeyed with that a bit, but the process is not on video. But yeah, we just went around, highlighted some edges, highlighted some of the brightest flat surfaces, and I was pretty happy with that. This just was a photo that came from my phone, so give it a try. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, patrons, for your unending support, your enthusiastic support. I count on it. We'll see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye.